I don't live in New Orleans, but in 2005, after Katrina hit, I wrote an article for the UK's Engineering and Technology magazine, then called IEE Review, regarding how the city was put back online. Though I did all my interviews by phone, including with engineers from the Army Corps, I got a strong sense of what the desperation and devastation was like in NOAA. When the oil spill made the news in April, as a journalist, I felt once again compelled to report on what was happening. Since July, I've covered the oil spill and recovery in the Gulf from a few vantage points. By listening to those tasked with capping the Macondo well, Admiral Allen, Rear Admiral Zhumkov primarily, by reporting on events from NOAA, such as those shared by Administrator Jane Lubchenco, by covering the concerns of the everyman and woman living in the Gulf, from a boat captain who gives dolphin tours off Orange Beach, Alabama, to the fishermen in Louisiana who suddenly lost their livelihood, to a vocal activist in Pass Christian, Mississippi, who is finding bird parts and corrects it on her daily walks. The challenge for me since April has not been getting government or other official sources to talk to me, but to get them to talk candidly. Reaching out to a Fish and Wildlife Service representative can happen, but only through a spokesperson, usually. In the one case when I got to talk to someone working on the ground, Charlie Hebert, it only came after he'd been carefully vetted by his PR. This is not unusual for sensitive stories, but when lives are at stake, it makes the reporting all the more frustrating. Thus, to get more of the true story, I colored out of the lines. I found sources on Flickr or through social networking sites. For example, I would get emailed updates on how sick their children were and how it wasn't being reported properly, or that there weren't as many brown pelicans or laughing gulls or blue herons seen on a daily walk. Talking to photographers was almost always helpful because they naturally think visually and could describe to me what they were seeing. For example, wildlife photographer Lori Harshbarger was instrumental in helping me. She lives in Bayou de Lao, Mississippi, and she told me after the well was initially capped, "I am so afraid the oil is going to get in my backyard. I fear for the wildlife around my house. I have alligators in my backyard, and I would hate for them to be extinct in this area." She ended our email discussion one day by saying thanks for writing these articles to get the public aware. In addition to getting to report on the stories from the man on the street or woman on the bayou, I have enjoyed the following privileges as a journalist. Writing on the oil spill for Examiner. The same level of respect. For example, on those media calls, provided my question was taken, individuals treated me with the same respect I heard them afford reporters from CNN or AP, for instance. In fact, I once noted that during these media calls, I wasn't the only journo from a smaller publication. I was often heartened to hear that local Gulf news organizations and niche science publications were doggedly pursuing these stories as well. Unknown status equals catching sources with their guard down. It dawned on me that not being from the New York Times could also give me a slight edge in one respect, because an Admiral Allen, for example, might not have expected as much from me. When I hit him with what could have appeared to be a non sequitur after a call in which he defended dispersant use in the Gulf on September blank, asking if his opinion had changed on offshore drilling, he could only say, quote, "Issues related to offshore drilling and the moratorium and those things are policy issues. And without trying to be flippant or glib, it's really above my pay grade. My responsibility is on the response and making sure that we get this oil cleaned up, that we're here, that we're there, and we do our job, and we hold BP accountable. Regarding long-term energy issues and energy policy, I will leave that to the policymakers." End quote. I was also seen as someone with more freedom, or I was someone with more freedom. For example, when I heard about Dr. Joy's discoveries, I was excited to get on the case. I wrote a story called Academics Help Keep Feds Honest that I never once worried would be edited incorrectly. In short, I was allowed to tell the truth. I was allowed to report quickly. I pride myself, and I did pride myself on days when I could beat other reporters from a Bloomberg, for example, to the punch. I had no hoops to jump through. I could get these reports out in record time. I was allowed to speak to any source or prospective source, no matter how controversial some might call them. I am talking in particular about the gentleman who was a Hurricane Creek keeper, who first recorded aerial footage of the oil spill, or the dolphin lady who told me that dolphins were being killed in the middle of the night by the Vessels of Opportunity crews off Orange Beach, Alabama, or the aforementioned woman Shirley Tillman, who wrote me and sent pictures of foamy water, still convinced that Corexit is being used in the Gulf, despite official government word to the contrary. Going forward, how will we improve reporting of catastrophes? Unlike staff reporters, I have not been shackled to a number of checks and balances inherent in the news business. That is a sticky subject in some quarters, but I've worked very hard to ensure accuracy as both reporter and editor of my own column. Moving forward with reporting on catastrophes, though, I would like to see more of a take-no-prisoners approach on the part of publishers and editors, many of whom have restrained reporters' best impulses to report the truth. There is no reason why someone should not be allowed to report on a conversation with someone who just got off a Vessels Opportunity boat, for example, if that individual wants to speak, but not for attribution. Further, how many pictures of oily brown pelicans do we need? While sadly thousands have perished, and we will never fully know the numbers, I want to see more kinds of pictures, Corexit in the water, pictures further out in the Gulf. I wanted all barriers broken down. Reporters and photographers should also have unlimited access to all points in the Gulf waters. This should have happened as soon as it became safe in a reasonable amount of time after the initial explosion in April. Editors need to have unlimited respect for freelancers' ideas, be willing to commission stories to fairly unknown reporters, young and old. Oftentimes, the best ideas come from the most imaginative minds and passionate hearts. I realize that the publishing business is shackled themselves today with, being at the mercy of the advertisers, but they really, when it comes to catastrophe, they really need to kind of throw that aside and think with their consciences more rather than the bottom line. Finally, reporters have to work with one another, not against each other. We must fight our natural instincts, including my own, to be egotistical and to fight with one another. We're interested in getting the story out. We're interested in restoring the Gulf, not restoring our resumes. Finally, I have been granted a kind of freedom that I feel is important for reporting on this type of news, and one which I know would benefit all reporters. This is crucial in reporting on environmental catastrophes. They should neither be politicized nor monetized. Thank you very much.